How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another awesome episode of Raw, or Rules as Written. I am one of your hosts, Matt Robertson, also known as Grape Ape.
I'm Stefan Srot, also known as TM Bad Wrong Fun.
And Stefan, we are not the Purple Planet launch show.
No.
That was a little while ago.
But we'll keep it purple.
Tonight's
questions aren't Purple Planet themed, actually. But,
that's right.
In our hearts, we got purple hearts today.
Well, we've got an outstanding guest this evening. Stefan, would you like to do the introductions?
Of course. We have tonight best friend of the show, Bob Brinkman.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Bob, if this is the first time somebody's watching, tell us a little bit about who you are so they can...
Sure. I'm a writer for Goodman Games. I've worked on the D&D side. I've worked on the 5th edition fantasy line, did 2 adventures, and worked on the original adventures Reincarnated for Castle Amber. On the DCC side, I've worked on DCC Lankmar, DCC Dying Earth, Crypt of the Devil Lich, done the conversion for Dark Tower and the upcoming Caverns of Thracia, and I co-host the Sanctum Squirm podcast.
So you are well-versed in what we talk about on the show, which is the rules, which is why we love having you on. Stefan, we're going back to the DCC RPG, and we're diving in. I'm going to call this block of shows our spell episodes, because we're getting into the nitty-gritty of these spells. So we're going to clear the slate. Bob, we're going to jump right in with our first question here. Right. This one gets asked a lot. Elaine, if you could bring up question 1, can a creature that is summoned by animal summoning act immediately? What's your first thoughts?
Define immediately.
As soon as it's summoned in the same round.
Yeah.
Well, you can't. It's a full round spell to cast it.
Okay.
So it takes you a full round. So the way I normally represent that is it appears at the end of the round where it's cast, and then it acts, right? But it's a full round spell. So whether you do it that way or it just appears the next round, it should be able to act, but it acts the next round.
So it would not act the round that the spell is cast because the spell
it takes
has
the
to
full
finish.
round. Yeah.
Okay. Elena, if you could bring up handout 1A for us. Here's everybody's... this is just for the audience.
Okay.
Here's the description of animal summoning. The caster invokes animal spirits to summon forth a mundane animal. Caster must be familiar with the animal type and have some remnant to expend in the spellcasting. A piece of the animal. The casting time does take 1 round, range of 20. And this is on page 129. And Stefan, we've upgraded to using the 10th printing of the DCC RPG.
Indeed, we have.
Go ahead,
that
Bob.
spell does not get nearly as much respect as it should. You know, people are always kind of upset if they've got a first level wizard that doesn't have magic missile or like flaming hands but has animal summoning. But those top level results of animal summoning are just as dangerous.
I feel like people generally... I think people coming from other editions or other games might think that, but pretty soon, once you read Animal Summoning and realize what you can do, people don't sleep on it very long. They realize fairly quickly, in my experience.
And
they're going, I can get some wolves really easily. I can get a bunch of wolves. I can get lions or whatever.
Well, and that's a real important note to throw a little love Daniel J. Bishop's way. He's been creating like an entire book of mundane animal stats, which is very handy for that spell. Because that's sort of the limitation if you've just got the core book, right? I want to summon. We've encountered lions sometime in my past. I want to summon lions. I don't have stats for those. I've got to kind of punt, and not all judges are comfortable with that. So reach out, look at the resources, and build a library of animals for yourself. It's handy.
I think another one is the critters. Stefan, what's it called? Critters.
Yeah, just pulling up critters, creatures, and denizens.
Is that the one with the black and white cover?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a bad book. I've got that. Finally, I've been unboxing all of our DCC stuff. Finally, it's 2 8-foot bookshelves, and that is one of the things that we've got.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I'll say though, really, you can just look in the back of the book and go, wolf, dire wolf. Oh, did you summon a bird? Let me just That movement speed's a fly speed. The
You
slightest tweak and a reskin, and that wolf
It's
can be
not
anything
tough,
you need it to be.
but not everybody. If you're new to judging, you might not be comfortable with that yet. Right?
True.
Well,
True. I wasn't
and
always. That's true.
I think at the lower levels, it's lasting at least 20 minutes or an hour, even at lower levels. And so you need hit points for it. You need attack, and you need a damage.
A group in one of the Gen Con tournaments summoned at the beginning of a level, max summoned a pack of lions or pride of lions, and rolled through hard.
Yeah, I've heard that one of Haley did that one, and 100 lions. I think I heard.
There you go. That's how you win one of the tournaments at Gen Con.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we do have some more handouts. So, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 1D for us, as in dog. On page 76, it says combat takes place in rounds. Each round is about 10 seconds. So that spell is going to take 10 seconds to cast, the full 10 seconds. And during that 10 seconds, everybody else is still going to be doing their actions as well, right, Bob?
Exactly.
Including the monsters and whatever else.
Including the fact that you might get hit.
Yeah, that's true. So that's a good question. If you have to maintain concentration for the whole round, if you get hit in that round, would you call for a concentration check?
I tend to be pretty forgiving on those things at my table, just because things can get a little complicated enough. So I generally consider they're doing it and they're done. If you're not in melee, now granted, if you're in melee combat already and you start to cast something like this, then I'm going to give you what you deserve for standing still and casting. But other than that, I generally just let it slide.
I think
although I might spell duel you.
True. I think rules as written, you might technically supposed to be doing the concentration, but yeah, that can get complex and it could feel pretty mean. Yeah, I feel like you're picking on people a little bit, perhaps.
And it's just well, especially when if you're a first level wizard, right? From the point of your action dice, it's all the same. I'm doing one thing this round. Doesn't matter if it takes me the full round or not. So I generally don't worry about it too much.
And you could also argue, I think that like the wizard is done, like, it doesn't take the full round for them necessarily to cast it, but the bones that are knitting together out of the ether and the muscle that's applying, that takes that extra 9 seconds or whatever. So you could argue that part either way, I think.
And it's a really nice excuse not to have to roll a new initiative for the animal, because the animal then appears at the end of a full round. So 10 seconds after you started casting, it's there. So you acted on 4 initiative. There it goes. It's here. It's ready to go on 4.
Well, let's bring up handout 1C, Elena. On page 77, it talks about spellcasting sometimes takes longer than one action. An action spent casting a spell either completes the spell, if it can be cast in one action, or contributes toward the total casting time if the spell requires more actions to cast. And then if we go to handout 1B, it says each round a character or monster may move its normal speed and do one thing for each of its action dice. Bob, spells that take one round to complete, that negates a move action, right? Because would you allow move action?
I don't think it necessarily negates movement, right? I mean, if it's something where you actually have to like draw a magic circle and things of that nature, certainly it would. But otherwise, most things don't require you to be in one place. So I could certainly see a wizard kind of shuffling down the hall, trying to get away from the rampaging phlogistonic horde while shuffling forward and muttering things and pulling out components and whatnot. So I don't think it necessarily negates movement.
All right. Well, and it's taking the full round to cast it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't move at all. If you're going with the concentration thought to it, if you look up the part of the rulebook that details what concentrating is, it actually says you can still move around, but only at half movement speed. So if that's your argument, a wizard's got a 30-foot movement speed, could still move 15 feet. Not, they wouldn't entirely use it. But that said, I would I just let them do their normal movement speed, I think.
I've got one point of contention for you, Bob, and this is a good one. Elena, if you could bring up handout 1E for us. On page 100, the counterspell may kill creatures out of initiative order. A counterspell allows the winner in a later count to jump ahead, and the counterspell has consequences for creatures that technically had a higher initiative count than the counterspeller. If someone cast animal summoning and jumped the initiative and went into a spell duel, and that spell completed by the animal being summoned, would it then begin to act out of the spell duel?
So here's the thing, because if you take that quote at face value without looking any further, it certainly sounds that way. But I happen to love the spell duel rule, and one of the primary things is spell takes effect as normal, which means that while you're trying to, I'm casting animal summoning, you jump to counter it with animal summoning. That's great. You might disrupt my spell completely, but your spell still takes that full amount of time to go off. But it's that was a good one, Matt. I'll give you that.
Thank you. I'll keep you on your toes, Bob.
No, well, I mean, especially once Enter the Dagon came out, there's sort of a secondary, optional spell rule set out there, right? Not as many people are familiar with the spell rules to begin with. I think any chance people have to look at that is a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, bonus question, since we're talking about animal summoning and spell dueling, Matt casts Magic Missile. Can I counter with animal summoning if I say that my pigeons are going straight into all of his missile?
Oh, now hang on a second, man. Now you're shaking your head, but
I'm shaking your head because you already gave the answer to that, Bob.
Well, he is attacking the spell, not the caster. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm attacking the spell with another spell.
It's not one of the things that's normally listed. So I don't know.
Me I couldn't do it before.
Well, I don't think it would fly rules as written, right? And especially since it would take a lot longer than Magic Missile does.
Oh, that's true.
And so that would be a problem there. And even if I were willing to look past that, it's iffy. But God, I would probably say no. But the first time you threw that at my table, I'd probably give you a point of fleeting luck just for being so creative. Right. I like to reward people for thinking on their feet, but.
Well, let's answer our final answers. Can a creature that is summoned by animal summoning act immediately? Means in the same round that the spell is cast. My answer is no. Stefan, what's your final answer?
Yeah, no, it's going to be on the following round. Basically exactly at the initiative count in the following round.
And Bob?
We are in complete agreement.
All right, Stefan, what's our next question?
How long do the effects of the spell Cantrip actually last? So Cantrip is also one of those slept-on spells because it's not really meant for attacking anything.
Unless you roll a 20 or higher.
If you get a 20 or higher, it can do just a little, die 3 of damage. But it's your kind of do anything, illusory effects, small, a little bit of this and that kind of spell.
We got it. If you bring up handout 2A, Elena, that'll give us a description for it. And they say they don't cast it needlessly because it's such a kind of easy spell. They don't want to risk corruption. But the time says varies, Bob. But in the results, I don't see any times.
Right. So this is, I think this is one of those.
I'll say it, Matt, to correct you really quick, and sorry to interrupt, Bob. You can't get corruption from this spell. It's the only one you can't, but you can misfire.
I would say that while you can infer things from the rules on this one, there really is no set how long things last. You have to sort of look at the examples given, right? Mm-hmm. A bright flash of lights, things like that. I take it to mean that most of these things should probably take maybe a round, maybe more, maybe less, right? I mean, shuffling a deck of cards, there's not really any combat advantage to that taking place over 1 to 3 rounds. Doesn't really matter. The only kind of groundwork I would have for how long they should last that is outside of that spell would be the second level spell Phantasm, which is an illusion spell. Since a lot of the things for Cantrip are illusionary based, and for that it's concentration for a round. So, but I think the spirit of the rule, and I'm leaning into the spirit of the rule more than rules as written because it's a vagary, right? The spirit is you're supposed to be able to do some cool little thing, pull the buttons off of a tunic, shuffle a deck of cards, make a beam of moonlight move across. They're all pretty small effects, so Cantrip takes as long as it takes, really.
All right, Stefan, if we bring up handout 2B, some of the examples for the minimal effect are a flash of light, which is going to be instant. It's going to be quick. A ray of moonlight, that could last for a while, but not, more than 6 hours. Dancing lights, who knows how long that would last. And then a patch of darkness. So each of those is variable times depending on what you conjure. What are you thinking, Stefan?
Patch of darkness. I obviously wouldn't want to make it. There's the cleric spell darkness, and that lasts for 10 minutes. So I would say not more than 10 minutes at a maximum, because I don't want a cantrip patch of darkness to be better than a actual darkness spell darkness. Now that has like a bigger radius and some other things as well, but so it's not a 1-to-1 comparison.
Elaine, if you could bring up
I would generally say, though, anywhere between 1 round and 1 minute is where I would generally land at, unless someone has a darn good argument for me.
Yeah, definitely, at least for the end of an encounter or whatever you want to use it for. Elena, if you could bring up handout 2C. Now, Stefan, handout 2C has to do with like manipulating sound, enhancing someone's voice, a fake dog barking, basic ventriloquism. Would you allow the absence of sound, Stefan, if I wanted to create a little pillow of silence?
I don't think so. I think I would allow you to create some kind of white noise, essentially, to mask other sound, but I don't think I would let you silence something.
Bob wouldn't let me either, and it looks like he forgot. But I'm
thinking about it, and I think it would depend on how you actually phrased it. Specifically, I want to create a zone of silence. I would say no, because that's different.
That's what I said. He said.
But no. I think if your character was, and I would probably require an intelligence check and an appropriate background, as like maybe a musician of some sort. If instead of creating a zone of silence, you wanted to create a zone of counter sound, right? The inverse of the sound being made, but that would still have to be something specific, not someone talking, but like that bell's going to ring. I want to create the inverse sound, because those would cancel out and silence it.
That's very clever. Yeah, that makes sense.
I thought I was being clever too, Stefan. We were playing in a customer service game, and I tried to cast Cantrip, although I was throwing it left and all over the place.
And you were just like, I want to mask those footsteps with a really long fart, or that wasn't your request?
I think Bob did give me a point of luck, though. But Elena, we've got one more handout. If you could bring up handout 2D. On page 130 in the 10th printing DCC RPG, the caster, the final top level, can generate dangerous fluids or energy of some kind that does 1d3 damage, a dollop of acid, or a freezing chill. Now, since this is causing damage, and let's say you made a little patch of acid underneath somebody's feet, how long would that last?
Well, it's doing a D3 damage. I think it's a dollop of acid. It's a moment of chill. I think it's a one and done. That doesn't
done.
I
really
agree.
last. It's an attack.
It wouldn't be like if you're still standing in that spot, it's ongoing.
No, I would say that for something like that, it would need to say that in the spell, right? Just like if it had said creates fire, then there would be reflex save against catching fire. But there's not anything like that. So it's a one and done. Now, I would also say that if you're a high enough level caster that you can cast this multiple times, right? You've got multiple action dice, and you just kept casting plus 20 round after round after round after round. I would probably let you build it up if you weren't throwing it at someone, right? If you wanted to slowly fill up a tube or something like that, it wouldn't. So what I'm saying is, like, if acid being a great example, I don't think it would magically disappear, but I think it's got 3 hit points worth of damage, and then it's just the acidity's gone, right?
Yeah.
But I would certainly allow someone to collect a little bit of it and try and make a bigger weapon if they want to spend action after action to do it. Because let's face it, there's more practical ways to do damage. I'm not going to nickel and dime someone over that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Stefan, our final answers for this question: how long do the effects of the spell Cantrip last? What's your final answer on the topic?
I'd say anywhere between 1 round and 1 minute is what feels right to me. But it's rules as written. There's nothing really there for how long. It's very vague. But that feels right, at least. I wouldn't allow anyone to bottle that acid or anything. I think that acid's going to go inert or just disappear very quickly. So
that's a great point. This spell cannot receive corruption. You can only get a misfire. And this one, you can also choose a lower result on the table. So all you have to do is get to a 20, and then you have all the results at your disposal. My answer is going to be the same thing. It does not say rules as written. I would say it requires the circumstances. I would say at least 1 round would be the minimum, up to 1 turn. I'd let it go for like 10 minutes, depending upon what they want to use it for. They're distracting guards or something like that. But I think I'd almost kind of give some kind of effect with it, like a will save to not be distracted by the lights if they're trying to sneak through or something like that. Because it's got to have some kind of effect.
oh yeah.
Bob, what's your final answer?
I'm going to take my final answer and build off of yours, actually, because you're right. Some sort of effect. DCC isn't a game of lengthy stories. It's a game of cinematic moments, right? And that's really what Cantrip is. Cantrip is that cinematic moment. You're creating that moonbeam that illuminates something in your path that otherwise might have been unseen, or darkens a shadow so that the thief can hide. So it takes as long as it takes. I'm with Stefan that I wouldn't allow something to go for a turn, because that seems overly long. But it also depends on what they want to do. You want to shuffle a deck of cards for 10 minutes. I'll let you shuffle a deck of cards for 10 minutes. It's all about the cinematic approach to what's going on. So rule of cool is how long Cantrip lasts.
I think my mindset between the 10 seconds and 1 minute is really it lasts long enough to accomplish one task. Like, what is the purpose of you casting Cantrip? It lasts long enough to accomplish that, or at least
definitely.
give you a chance that you wouldn't have had.
All right. Well, our next question, Elena, if you could bring up question 3. Should Charm Person be allowed, or is it too powerful? Bob, we've got people in the Discord that just flat out refuse to use Charm Person.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I think that they're negating a pretty decent item that folks have access to. I don't think it's too powerful at all, other than maybe, if you're running a one shot or a convention game and people are spell burning down to dust, then yes. But then again, any spell is too powerful at that point, right? In normal play, no. The save is equal to the spell check, like most things. there's plenty of things that you can't charm. If you're worried about, well, my players are abusing charm person, throw some undead at them. They can't charm those. Throw primeval slimes at them. They can't charm those either. Don't just say, I don't like this spell, you can't have it. I think that's a cop out, and that's not fair to your players.
Well, the way I phrased it might not be the way that it's kind of presented. Some of the contention with it is that it wasn't written effectively to describe the fullness of situations where it can be used in. So we'll get into that here in a second. Elena,
give me some examples on that one.
Elena, if you could bring up handout 3A, this is on page 131, our description of charm person. You charm an enemy to become a friend. So any mundane living humanoid can be affected. Druids can cast this on animals. Wizards can attempt it on monsters for a -2. And you can attempt it on outsiders and demons for a -4. So the first thing is from the 8th to the 10th printing, that just got changed. So you used to be able to cast it on undead, which is one of the points of contention. So in the 8th printing, it says you can cast the spell on monsters and undead with a -2 penalty. So there was a clear discrepancy there, because undead traits says they can't be charmed, right, Stefan?
It does.
So there was.
You can thank Mike for fixing that. Mike, since taking over, kind of running the DCC side of things, has been looking into trying to get some consistency on things like undead traits. So, yeah.
And we've got it listed on multiple pages. Elena, if you could bring up handout 3D, undeads can be turned by clerics. They don't eat, drink, or breathe. They're immune to crits, disease, and poison. And they're immune to sleep, charm, and paralysis. So from the 8th printing to the 10th printing, if you guys are watching, that rule has changed now. So charm person can't be used on undead anymore. So that point of contention is gone. But if you can bring up handout 3B, Elena, let's look at the second result. Single target makes a will save, falls under the caster's complete control as if they were a friend. However, the target will not perform actions that are suicidal or which a devoted friend would not otherwise perform. So one of the points of contention is, Bob, if somebody's like a follower of Set, and you're charming them, their belief system is still in Set. Would they attack their other fellow priests? If that's still their religion, just because they're your friend.
So here's the thing, right? Those fellow priests are probably also their friends, right?
Right.
And that's kind of the thing, right? I mean, you both are my friends. Matt, if you told me to punch Stefan, I probably wouldn't, despite the fact that you're my friend, because Stefan's my friend too. And shame on you for asking me to do that, Matt. I mean, that was just wrong of you. And that's kind of the thing that I think some people lose sight of. Complete control as if they're your friend, as opposed to you are just the ultimate puppet master. You still might need to convince them. Now, they're going to listen to what you have to say. They're going to take that into account. So you might be able to do some really good wheedling and convincing, but I want to point out that you could certainly use a family Thanksgiving as a perfect example. If you sit down at a family Thanksgiving surrounded by people you love and think you're going to change their political opinions, that's not going to happen, and that's not really going to happen with Charm Person either. Now,
thanks for the raid, Brotherhood of the Dice. Thank you for the raid, and I totally agree. I always use Charm Person and kind of thought of it like Switch. They're your minion now, but after talking with people, Stefan, I can definitely see the point that they'd more become a neutral party and might not attack either side. What do you think?
I think maybe that it says in there that they won't perform actions that are suicidal or which a devoted friend would not otherwise perform. Now that's I'm reading the 14 to 17 entry right now. I think at higher levels, let me see really quick. At higher levels, it doesn't it still gives that descriptor. Yeah, it still seems to give that descriptor, even at like a 30, 31. At 32, I'm not going to talk about that. You get a whole army at that point if you want. It can be pretty wild.
You're charming a whole town.
Yeah. Yeah, they might not do it.
I've always used it like you can charm them and then they attack the other people that are attacking you.
I've used it like that too, but I hadn't really thought about it. I might have been using it off. I'll also say one thing in there. It says druids can also use this spell on animals. I was doing a quick Control F in my book really quick, and the word druid is in there 8 times. One, when talking about Yggdrasil, the world brute, that patron, but never actually in reference to a wizard, except in that Yggdrasil thing. So clearly, wizards could be considered druids. Druid is also given an example title in Appendix T for titles, but just for clerics. And then druid, if you look at class descriptions, is only listed for a name you might call a neutral cleric. So but not wizard. So if a druid can cast charm person on animals, this is a wizard spell. Are we saying that's probably only neutrally aligned wizards? I would think so, but
So,
think, Bob.
Okay, so and you bring up a really good point, right? Well, this is a wizard spell, and druid is normally speaking, you would think of it as a cleric, but there are clerical spells that wizards get access to. So if someone wants to build a nature-based cleric, which would be a druid, then I would make this spell available to them. But the trade-off for that, normally a wizard, if I'm remembering correctly, and I can only think of one example that I'm roughly familiar with at the moment, but normally a clerical spell by a wizard is cast. It's a level lower. They cast it at level 1. They cast a clerical spell a second level at level 1 as opposed to level 2.
I think they normally. I don't think it's. I'm looking there. I see detect magic can be a level 1 wizard can get, and that's a level 1 cleric spell. But they cast it at -2 to their spell check.
But there's little things like that. But overall, I also think that in some ways I think in some ways you're both right, and you're not really in disagreement. I think that Matt, if you hit someone with charm, and let's face it, charm person does have a lengthy as a lengthy duration. Certainly, they would take your side in other combats against things that aren't necessarily their friends or aren't otherwise a strong conflict, right? But I also think that in your example of, hey, your priestess said I want you to attack these other priestess right here, they're going to be, those are my friends, these are my friends. What's a good friend going to do? They're going to get between you. They're going to be the ones going, hey, guys, chill, knock it off. So those charmed people are still going to be beneficial to you, especially if you're outnumbered, by getting between you. Now, they're not going to necessarily try and die for you there, but I mean, that's what a good friend does, right? So
I think you could be clever, though, in how, if you're manipulating the situation. And
oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I think I've been using it kind of wrong, because I've always kind of used it, and it doesn't come up too much, but if you charm something, then go ahead and tell me what you want the charm thing to do. And now that I've, inspected the stance on it a little bit more, I would definitely say it's more of a negotiation, and one point that this person pointed out is that even my good devoted friends right now, I don't have control over what they do, right? Even a devoted friend, even our best friends, I can't tell you, hey, go do this. They still have a mind of their own. So that's kind of where his dislike of the spell comes from.
Yeah, if we're out getting drinks, oh devoted friend, I'm not going to go fight somebody just because you say, hey, go fight that guy over there.
Well, it depends on how much you've had to drink.
Yeah, now if you
it depends on how big that guy is. If he's
small,
it
just depends on how much you've had to drink.
Now, if you get in a fight, I might pull you back or throw a punch or just, call for help and not get involved. So that's going to change if it's, a religious thing. You're saying priestess is set. Maybe you're going, those guys are actually not set priestesses. And they said set was a jerk. You got to manipulate the situation a little bit.
Well, and so that's the thing. So, I mean, I've kind of changed my ways to look at it, but even still, charm person can take and end an entire scenario. If you can charm the big bad evil guy, and he commands the other little, priests, and he's like, "Stop!" That ends the encounter, and so
here's the thing. You're my friend, right? You've come to my temple where I am preparing to conquer the world, and my friend comes before me and tells me that I should stop when I am on the verge of completing my life's goal. I mean, you're a friend and all, and I love you, man. And that's it. You're my friend, and I love you, but I'm about to rule the world. So tell you what, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to let you live. You're going to be by my side. You will rule by my side, but I'm not going to stop.
And if you keep causing trouble, you're going to have a cushy tower that I lock you in.
Job. We'll give you a desk job somewhere. Don't worry about it. It really, as a judge, you need to think, and as a player, you need to think. And that might actually be one reason why people don't like it. Not that people don't like to think, but it's not as cut and dry, black and white as magic missile. Bang, you take damage. Well, this is charm person. It's all how sweet and charming you can be. And keep in mind that if you could be dear friends with someone for most of your life, and if out of the blue they come up to you, smile on their face, and sucker punch you, and then knock you down and start taking kicks, you're not your friend anymore, and you're going to act accordingly, right? Friendship is a transitory property, and
so that's come up before too, Bob. The instance you just kind of spoke of, because you mentioned a little bit. This is a lengthy spell. If it's successful, even if the opposing character has an 18 plus, it's going to last an entire day. So if they're hit by an ally or hit by the person that charmed them, do you allow another save, or do they just kind of break the charm?
So here's the thing: you brought up something that people tend to forget. If they're hit by an ally, they will turn around and they will slug them right back, because you know what? You're my friend. These guys are just with you. I don't know these guys. They're not my friends. You're vouching for them, but one of them hits me with a sword or punches me. Oh no, all bets are off. I'm going to beat the crap out of him. And then you're going to be the friend saying, hey, guys, knock it off.
And I've gotten in some physical fights with friends for a while. It's been since I was a teenager, but I've thrown some punches. Now that friend, if you start attacking your newly devoted friend, they're probably going to attack you back and try to grapple you, restrain you. They might be doing subdual damage and not trying to kill you. They'll throw some punches.
All right, well, we got to get our final answers on this one. Should charm person be allowed, or is it too powerful? My final answer is yes, it should be allowed, but I personally am now even going to adjudicate different. It's more like charm the judge, because you're going to have to tell me how you want the person you've charmed to act, and then it's going to be a negotiation. It's not just going to be you tell me what to do, and that's what happens to that guy. Stefan, what's your final answer?
Yes, it should be allowed. I did think it was overpowered, and I'm glad we had this conversation, because I don't anymore, actually.
Bob, you get the last word.
In a game where you can have a mercurial effect that can cause a drought over an area for 100 years, I don't think the charm person is too powerful of a spell.
All right, there you have it. Stefan, what's our fourth question for today?
Yeah, number 4. Does the negative energy of chill touch transfer through a weapon attack? And think about melee and ranged. Because I know,
Bob?
Paralysis can over that cleric spell. But
paralysis
touch,
can, but it does
different.
state, because first it's your hands. You roll high enough, it charges your weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that chill touch does not go to missile weapons, right? It doesn't even say it goes to your weapons, because it's giving you the attack of the undead, right? And for an undead creature to roll on the undead crit table, for example, it needs to be using a natural attack, not a weapon. Otherwise, it's table 3. So there's a differentiation there, but and at high levels, all of a sudden it's a sphere. So there's no real middle ground there. I think rules as written, it's only your hands, but at higher levels, I might be convinced to allow it to go through your weapon as well, but it does not appear that it is intended to do so.
All right. Well, Elena, if you could bring up handout 4A, Chill Touch is on page 133. It says this necromantic spell delivers the chill touch of the dead. The caster must spell burn at least 1 point when casting this spell. If you could bring up handout 4B, further proof. I mean, the name of the spell is Chill Touch, right? So there's definitely touch in the name. The manifestations are all affecting the wizard's hands. They glow blue, they turn black, they emit a strong odor of corruption. The wizard's hands appear skeletal. So those are all kind of, hey, I'm about to touch you with my hand. Stefan, what do you think about it? Go through the weapon, or?
I think it's just hands, not weapons. So yeah, your wizard's gonna have to get up close and personal with some baddie. I'll say we don't have the art for this as a handout, but even the art on that page is of a wizard touching a guy with his hands.
I thought about adding that art too, but I didn't. Elaine, if you could bring up handout 4C, the minimal result, 12 to 13. The caster's hands are charged with negative energy. On the next round, the next creature the caster attacks takes an additional 1d6 damage. This is where it kind of gets muddy for me, because it says additional. And it says the caster's attack. So if it's an additional damage, then that means you're already doing damage with something else. Now,
Yeah, you fist. You're doing a die 3.
Right. I figured your Bob would say that. That could be your fist.
I was thinking about.
But, Elena, if you could bring up handout 4E, the explanation of an attack roll, which it says, you get, if we go up to the next range.
Your explanation of attack rolls and trying to
says,
skirt the rules every time. This is it.
No, he's
getting
it right now. Shh. He's doing good.
All right.
He's doing good.
Let's go to 4D first. So let's go up to the next result where it says you get a +2 to attack rolls. That's how it defines that spell. If we go to the definition of attack rolls on page 78, an attack roll, usually a 1d20, you add any bonuses. They can come from items, spells, class abilities, all these bonuses. If the attack is made with a melee weapon, you add strength. If it's made with a missile weapon, you add agility. So it defines attack rolls for us. Bob, what do you think?
I think you lost the thread there, Matt.
What?
Matt?
It defines attack rolls. You get a +2 to attack rolls.
Yes, but an attack that doesn't define attack rolls so much as tell you it breaks down the different types of attacks and how they're impacted. If I'm attacking with a melee weapon, I get this. If I'm attacking with this, if I have to touch something, it's a D3 plus strength bonus. Is my damage, and you get your strength bonus because it's a melee attack. But that doesn't mean you get to charge your weapons, or especially missile weapons.
It goes through your weapon. Your weapon's a conduit.
Matt,
I want to say, Matt, like I said at the beginning, rules is written versus how I might adjudicate this at a higher level. At a higher level, if you roll high enough, we're talking, in like the mid to high 20 results, maybe, I might allow that at my table, right? But rules as written, it's your hands, and that's your melee attack.
Bob, you are a stickler for the English language. Now, in the definition, it says if it was only one kind of attack, subdual, it would say to your attack roll. This says rolls, plural, meaning
Yes,
different types of attacks.
no, it means multiple attacks because the spell has a duration, Matt.
Oh, I don't know, Bob. I don't
Matt,
know.
No, literally,
if you want to
it
use a
has
weapon,
duration. You're
get
making
some brass
rolls
knuckles,
over
quest
you.
for it or something.
No,
If
so
you
hang
wanted
on.
to,
So
if you want it
let's
to be applied to
go back
weapons,
to Chill
steal
Touch.
the like making a spell unique rule from the magical Libram or whatever book 2 in the Dying Earth box set. Steal that, apply it to your normal DCC game, and then you can customize your spell and make it apply to the weapons too. But it's just the hands.
For example, Matt, 18 to 19 charges your hands up for a full turn. So it needs to say plural. It needs to say attack rolls. Otherwise, if it just said attack roll, that would imply that you just get to do it once within the next turn. It needs to be plural. It doesn't mean a multitude of attack styles. It literally means a multiple of attack rolls.
Okay, I see your point there. So if we look at paralysis, and paralysis says the cleric hands and melee weapons are charged, paralysis has a distinction between melee weapons and
Yes.
missile weapons in their result.
Well, and it includes hands and melee weapons, which Chill Touch doesn't.
Now, I'll say, without changing the function of the spell, the only change would be if you're like, my wizard is a kickboxer, I'll let you charge up your feet instead, but that's it.
Right.
You know, and at the end of the day, it doesn't change the damage.
Yeah.
It's a D3 plus strength subdual plus the Chill Touch damage.
Okay. What about if it's a warrior?
You
Would you allow some kind of crazy deed?
Oh,
with these,
well, now you're talking deeds, and now that throws something in differently. Now, of course, so we're assuming we've got a warrior that has managed to cast something off of a scroll, which is difficult but not necessarily impossible, or has an item that gives him that power. I would either allow, a decent level deed to convert the damage from subdual to normal damage, right? Such as like a precision strike. Normally if I just slap a guy across the face, it's subdual damage, but I'm going right here in the temple and I'm trying to crush bone. Okay. Take that D3 to regular damage. Or other things. You can do all sorts of crazy things with deeds, but it'd still be their hands. Their hands are what are charged.
I see the point, and you've convinced me. I was just being devil's advocate
Glad
here.
you've seen
No, Matt, you've raised some really good points of discussion so far. I am not bothered at all.
So our final answers, because we got one more question to get to. Does the negative energy damage of Chill Touch transfer through a weapon attack, melee or range? Stefan, what's your final answer?
Hands only, is it? No melee weapons.
I think I'm going to have to agree as well. The spell's name is Chill Touch, so it's got to be a touch with a hand. Bob, what's your final word?
Rules is written, hands only. At your table, whatever you'd like to do, but rules is written, hands only. All
right, Stefan, our last question. Lane, if you could bring up question 5. What penalty comes from being struck blind by the spell color spray? Before you answer, Bob, I'm going to get some handouts out of the way. Elena, if you could bring up handout 5A. On page 135, that's our definition of color spray. Caster summons a spray of brilliant colors that blind and dazzle the target. Elena, if you could bring up 5B right behind that, our one of our step above minimal results, 14 to 17. Up to 2 individuals within range must make a will save or be blinded for 1d4 rounds. Sightless creatures are immune. And finally, before we get Bob's opinion, Elena, if you can bring up handout 5D, we know from table 4.1, the attack roll modifiers, that if a defender is blind, we get a +2 to attack them on missile and melee. So, Bob, how does that affect the person who's blinded, though?
So, this is something that I had to wrestle with quite a bit, especially going through like Devil Lich and Dark Tower. And my answer comes from page 89, the Mighty Deed Blinding Attacks, where when you are completely blinded, it is -8 to all attack rolls, and you can move half speed in a random direction. That's the answer I got for you.
We've got that handout, Bob. I agree with you. If you could bring up handout 5E, Elena, this is what Mr. Brinkman is talking about. Page 89, the blinding D-died results. Out of 3, they suffer a -2 point, but their only eyes are irritated. Temporarily blinded, -4, move at half speed. But I would define blind as being completely blind, Stefan. -8 to attack rolls, can only move in a random direction at half speed. Is that what you think as well?
I am. And bonus edition, if you're a halfling, you can't spend luck on your friends.
Yeah, that's ain't that a pisser. I mean, you could make. I think at the table you could make the argument that it's temporary blindness because it's maybe a -4 as opposed to the -8. But as a rule, that's what I go with is -8. That is certainly the penalty I give creatures that are blinded, and so I give players the same penalty. And that's
temporarily blinded is. I think they're temporarily and completely are. It should be temporarily and permanently there, or temporarily should change something. I think there's a.
Well, I think temporary is like for a round or two, right? Yeah. It's like a -4 to your next attack roll,
like a flash of light.
Yeah. So, but that's I think the most important thing is whatever you decide, you need to apply it to both, the player characters and whatever they're blinding.
So handout 5C, Elena, just to show the the severity of blindness and deafness. Page 30 of Lay on Hands. If a cleric is healing a broken limb, it's only 1 die. Organ damage 2 dice. Disease 2 dice. Paralysis 3 dice. Can't even move. Poison 3 dice. But blindness and deafness are 4 dice of healing, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a very big deal. I believe there's also, if I recall correctly, I don't play clerics very often. I think there's also a high level spell that'll take care of it.
I'm sure it's Restore Vitality.
Yeah,
level 3 clerics.
So I mean, it's a big deal if you're blind or deaf. Now, I would also say that if a character is literally permanently stricken blind, their eyes have been ruptured from their head, they're not coming back. They don't have a cleric right now that is going to be able to fix that problem in the foreseeable future. While they might not necessarily be an incredibly playable character, over time, I would say they're not just moving around in random directions. I think the moving in random directions at half speed is, combat situations, or you're moving slow because you don't know where you are, things of that nature, right? You take that into account. But for immediate game purposes, you're kind of hosed.
And
if you don't have a cleric around to heal that, go play Null House. Available in the upcoming DCC 107 on the Purple Planet Kickstarter. There's an item that'll give you a solution in there.
Bob, what if we blind someone with color spray, and we were right in front of them? We were, in melee. Do I get a withdrawal now for free?
I would say. Now I'm trying to think about what sort of devil's advocate answer you might throw at me, because my immediate response is you could, because they're not going to see you going back. And I mean, I think it's one thing if the room's dead silent, you're standing in front of them, you blind them, and you're stepping away and you're making noise, and they have a way to at least know that you're moving. Then they would get that -8 attack, which is unlikely to hit you. But in the middle of melee, you've just been blinded. You're literally just trying to figure out what you can hear, I don't think there's any way that they would know that you'd stepped out of the way. And that's one of the things that I keep in mind, right? When I've got players
I'll
that
call
have
for a
blinded
luck
a
check.
monster. No, I mean when I've got players that have blinded a monster, if they aren't attacking it, it doesn't know where they are at all, right? I mean, it's wildly swinging around. And if they walk away, it doesn't know, as long as there's something else going on.
All right.
And it doesn't know to attack somebody unless it's being attacked.
All right, so we've got one more handout. We're about out of time, but Elaine, if you could bring up handout 5F, I found one more definition for blind in the book,
I thought
and
there
it's
was
on page 295 under Affliction of the Gods, a cleric spell. So blind creatures suffer a -4 penalty to initiative, attack and damage, saving throws, and spell checks, and are easy to surprise. In addition, if they're firing a missile weapon, it's a -8, and any shot would have a 50 chance of striking a randomly determined ally. So this is a little bit different. This is -4 instead of -8, but it also adds it to initiative. So once they were blind, would you drop them in the initiative?
Wow. Okay, in that particular instance, I mean, we're talking a level 4 clerical spell, right? I mean, you're talking a
Right.
level 8 character is casting that spell. So yes, I would drop them in initiative if they got hit with that, just because 4th level spells it's got big effects for a reason. So yeah, that's
and they're easy to surprise. So I would rule that they're immediately susceptible to backstabs from our thief.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Anyway,
Would you require a move silently first, Bob, or?
I think it would depend on the circumstance. I might require a move silently, or at least a luck check, right? Because I mean, saying they're easy to surprise. Well, yeah, if they're already blinded, they certainly be easy to surprise if someone sneaks forward and starts taking shots at them. But in combat, it's a little harder. But they still aren't necessarily going to know you're behind them or things like that. So I would have a roll, whether it's a move silent that the person actively makes or a luck check that I ask for. But that would also give you the chance to essentially just walk up and prison shiv somebody, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got to give our final answers. What penalty comes from being struck blind by the color spray spell? If I'm doing it personally and somebody is blind, I'm going to give them the -8 to attack. I'm going to give them a 50% chance of hitting anything. If they're swinging, they might hit a different target. I'm even going to throw in the -4 penalty to initiative because, they're blind. What are they going to do? Stefan, what are your thoughts?
I'll go with that result of 5 on the blinding deed die. Mine is 8 to attack and randomly moving in direction half speed. Maybe if you get a little more composed, it won't be a random direction. But that's how it will start in combat.
Would maybe a will save to see if they,
We'll see. Honestly, I'll keep it simple and keep it at that. If the player brings out something up, I don't know, a will save, a luck save, whatever keeps it going.
Bob, what's your final answers for this one?
I think that I would stick with the blinding deed result unless I was using Affliction of the Gods, just because they imply different types or different causes of blindness, and so that the trauma of like a wound or having your eyes seared from your head, giving a -8 to all attacks, as opposed to your vision slowly clouds over, and while still traumatic, only a -4 to your attacks, -8 with a ranged weapon. And what sort of monster do you have to be shooting into melee with a -8 plus another -1? I mean, that'd just be insane. Plus, it's simpler. But if you don't like either of those answers, go find what works for you.
All right. Well, Bob, everyone who comes on the show always divulges little secrets. And I don't know if you saw the last episode of Raw, but the Dark Master even told us.
I learned things.
Journey to
About
the
journey to the center of
Aerith.
Aerith, I'm sure.
A very big release. Bob, what kind of secrets can you tell our watchers?
I have no secrets that I can reveal because the Dark Master holds my non-disclosure agreement. He holds my NDA. I don't hold his.
What have you been working on, though, Bob? What can you share?
I have stuff. I
Right.
can plug. So first of all, I am running a total of 8 more playtests for Beneath the Isle of Serpents, which is a Caverns of Thracia adjacent adventure. I'm running 4 slots for this month's Tabletop RPG Pickup Con, which is a free event online, and then I'll be running 4 sessions of that at GaryCon. So if you want to playtest that, get your name in the credits, just have fun, I'm there for you. As for projects, Legends of Uganda is now up in the Goodman Games store. That is the project that Sanctum Media has done with Ashraf Braden, the Ugandan game designer. And we had to restock the warehouse with it, which is fantastic. It's all stuff based on Ugandan folklore. And then I launched a Patreon with a passion project of mine, the Dictionnaire Infernal, which is a dictionary of demonology, originally published in 1818. I am translating it to English and providing gameable content for every entry. So I'm doing 10 to 12 entries per month is the plan. So it's about 4,000 words of just gameable content for the first release. We've got the first month, we've got 2 Type 7 demons, we've got several magical items, all sorts of fun stuff. And you can find that at patreon.com/sanctummedia.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing, Bob. Thanks for coming on the show, as always. Outstanding guest.
Stefan, we got through and we agreed on everything.
It's wild.
This is a first.
I mean, I don't know if it's a first, but you
when I've been on, it's a first.
you said everything. You said everything right this time, Bob.
It just took 40 episodes.
I do want to make one correction. When I told the Dark Master that Bob did not allow the ranged backstabs, that was not the case. I think the one that Bob wouldn't allow was the dual wielding backstabs. I think I was in error when I said that.
Actually allow that too.
All right.
You're just throwing me under the bus left and right, Matt. It's okay. It's okay. That when you are confronted by the presence of the Dark Master, I understand. Just shove anybody else under the bus.
Stefan's lucky he made it through that episode without me throwing him under the bus. Stefan, what do you got going on?
Drug you down with me. Nothing big right now. Folks, enjoy the Purple Planet. Actually, I'm doing a bonus mini adventure that is on the Purple Planet, so I've kind of backdoored my way into the Horde there. Go check out Tim Satley's adventure on there. So, besides that, I'm gonna be doing I've got my newsletter thing on Substack, Dragon Peak Publishing. Gonna do an interview with James Pozzanell in a couple weeks, and then Tim will be after that. So the campaign will still be going on, but folks will get to find out a little bit more about both of what they've written.
And James is the newest co-host of Spellburn.
Absolutely,
yeah,
the latest
true.
Judge Jay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Elena, thank you for outstandingly running the stream. We'll see you on the 20th. Talk to you later, everybody.